Hey everybody, it's Tim Miller from the Bulwark. A extremely alarming and a little bit annoying interview between Mitt Romney and his biographer, where he reveals what his worries are if Donald Trump wins in November. And let's just cut to the chase. I mean, the real headline here is twofold. One is that Romney is legitimately concerned about retribution for him or his family if Trump is elected. We'll get into the details of that. And also, he says privately he's been discussing moving abroad if Donald Trump wins. His spokesperson said that that was in jest, and maybe it was, but even if that's the kind of thing that you're joking about, it just shows how Romney is thinking about Trump 2.0. I want to read you some of the quotes here. When Romney is asked about whether, when Trump says, "I am your retribution," whether Romney would be part of the retribution, he says, "I don't know the answer to that. The good news is I haven't had an affair with anybody. I don't have any classified documents. I can't imagine something I've done that would justify an investigation, let alone an indictment. But hopefully, as far as my sons, hopefully they've all crossed their T's and dotted their I's." And then he expanded that, though. He's like, even if Romney himself hasn't done anything that merits investigation, even if his son haven't, he begins to grow irritated, talking about how big his family is. He says, but I've got 25 grandkids. The reporter says, throwing up his hands. How am I going to protect 25 grandkids, 2 great grandkids? I've got 5 sons, 5 daughters-in-law. It's like we're a big group. Then the reporter goes on to mention that he's had to already spend thousands of dollars to protect his family after January 6th. The reporter says this is a problem, something that he's given serious thought to. And then finally, when it just comes down to the question of whether he is worried about this or not, Romney just lays it right out there. I think Trump has shown by his prior actions that you can take him at his word. So I would take him at his word. I think this is an important part of Romney about how he sees Trump clearly. He's not doing this game that a lot of these Republicans do where they're like, oh, that's just bluster. That's just Trump being Trump. You don't have to take him literally. You can take him just, it's a figure of speech. And Romney's saying, no, like Trump said that he was not going to accept the results of the election, and he didn't. He said he was going to try to overturn the election, and he did. He said that he was going to pardon, his political allies, and he did last time. He says he'll pardon the January 6th insurrectionists next time, and he probably will. He said that he was going to try a Muslim ban last time, and he did. So, Trump's a liar, but when he has a nefarious plan, he generally at least tries to follow through on it. And as Romney points out, if he says that he's going to try to enact retribution on his political foes, then someone in Romney's shoes needs to take that seriously and think about what that kind of retribution might look like and what that might mean for his family. It is clearly a worst case scenario type situation you're thinking about. But the fact that you have a sitting U.S. Senator who was the Republican nominee for president prior to Trump, the previous Republican nominee, not that long ago, not like from the 1970s, 2012, the one right before Donald Trump, he feels like the danger to him in a second Trump term is at least plausible enough that he has to consider security for his family, consider how you protect all his grandchildren. At least float the idea of leaving the country. That's insane. This is madness that we're in this situation, that could even be a possibility. And one thing I like to say to my Republican friends, ones I still talk to, which are fewer and fewer every year, who try to push back at me and say that I have TDS or that, Romney, that this is overboard, it's exaggerated. My response is always like, okay, well, what % chance do you think Donald Trump would try to target a Romney family member? Do you think it's 50%? Do you think it's 10%? Because even if you just think it's 10% or 3%, that's way too high. That's way too high. That's not something that we've ever had to deal with, where one of the 2 major party candidates was pledging to use the power of the government to target his foes. And that there was a reasonable consideration that could happen. This is really, we're living in the upside down. And I good on Mitt Romney, who has spoken out clearly about Donald Trump, who's spoken out clearly about J.D. Vance and how disappointed he is. And just, you can sense Romney's that he shares my just visceral disdain for JD Vance and his phoniness. But here's the thing. Y'all know where I'm going with this. It requires the next step, man. If you think that there's like even a chance that your family could be targeted by this guy, like you gotta make the step to go out there and say you're gonna support Kamala Harris and that people that live in swing states should support Kamala Harris. I think Romney's convinced himself that his voice on this doesn't matter. And I think it really does, at least on the margins. I think about all the Mormons in Nevada. I'm talking about this on the podcast with Michael Medved, which you should go check out as well. There's a significant Mormon vote there. There's significant finance types who respect Romney, for his career, his business career outside of politics. He could have an influence here. He should be for her. When asked about this in the same article, he starts talking about the things he didn't like about the Biden administration, be it the student loan handout was one of them, and I get that. I have things that I didn't like. I shared his critique of the student loan bailout, at least certainly in the way it was structured initially. Some of the later ways that they formulated it, made more sense to me. But so what? Okay, that stuff you can argue over. That stuff you can deal with at a later date. This is about the rule of law, the persistence of our system of government. Romney knows this. And so I see this article, and on the one hand, it's like, wow, siren, huge news. Like Mitt Romney is has some legitimate concerns about retribution and the safety of him and his family. On the other hand, it's like, okay, then what? Then what? Then this guy needs to be stopped. Because there are other people out there that don't have the resources the Romney family does. And I know that he knows that, who have spoken out and who have put themselves in the firing line, if you will, of MAGA and of Donald Trump, and so in order to protect everybody, not just the several dozen Romneys, Trump needs to be defeated. He needs to be defeated soundly, and we need Mitt Romney to be part of that effort, and many, many others. So that's the update. The news was from an interview there with McKay Compens, who we've talked to before. I'm sure we'll be having McKay back on the page here. Make sure to subscribe. We've got much more coming for you today and all the way through the week. We'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.